Welcome to our deep dive, into the new world 2025 and beyond.
Okay,
This document is, it's really a fictional meeting
right.
of some pretty big tech giants.
Yeah.
You've got Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg, Pichai,
Wow.
but there's a twist.
Okay.
Ross Ulbricht.
Interesting.
He's the founder of Silk Road,
Right.
and he's there too
Huh.
with Trump moderating.
Okay.
Now, this isn't about, like predicting the future or anything like that,
Sure.
but it's more about like exploring how
Right.
these powerful players
Yeah.
and their philosophies, could really shape our world.
It's a fascinating premise because it brings together
Yeah.
individuals with vastly different views on technology and
Right.
how the role of government.
Exactly. So the document presents 5 scenarios.
Okay.
The first one is it's called the dawn of technocracy,
Okay.
and it sees Musk advocating for AI-driven governance.
AI governance. That's
Well,
interesting.
Bezos kind of counters that with
Yeah.
a world that's powered by like Alexa-like technology, where commerce is king.
Okay.
What are your initial thoughts on those two visions?
I think both ideas raise some really important questions
Yeah.
about, the balance between efficiency and control.
Right.
Like, could we really trust algorithms to make, like big decisions
Sure.
about healthcare resource allocation or even criminal justice?
Absolutely.
And would we even be comfortable living in a world where
Yeah.
every single transaction, every interaction is mediated by a tech giant's platform?
Yeah, those are some big questions,
Right.
especially with Musk's vision potentially impacting everything
Yes.
from space exploration
Different-
to our daily life right here on Earth.
Exactly. And the document uses Ulbricht's perspective to kind
Uh-huh.
of challenge those visions.
Okay.
He argues for blockchain based systems that give individuals control over their own data
That's interesting.
and ensure anonymity. And I think it's important to remember he's someone who's actually experienced the consequences of a surveillance state firsthand.
Yeah, that's such a critical point.
Right.
He brings a whole other layer of complexity to this discussion,
Yeah.
especially when you consider how blockchain technology could empower individuals
Yeah,
while also presenting challenges for governments and established institutions.
for sure.
Could you elaborate a bit on how blockchain could facilitate that data control and anonymity?
Sure. So imagine a system where your personal information is actually encrypted
Okay.
and distributed across a whole network of computers
Yeah.
rather than being stored in a central database controlled by, a company or a government.
So it's kind of like spread out.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not all in one place.
Right. And this would make it much harder for anyone
Okay.
to track your online activity or access your sensitive data without your permission.
So that sounds pretty good for privacy.
It could be a big step forward for privacy, but it also raises questions about accountability and law enforcement.
Right. Like, how do you track down criminals or,
Exactly.
prevent illegal activities if everything's so decentralized?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost like a digital tug of war
It is.
with each side pulling in a different direction.
Totally.
It makes you think about the trade-offs we might have to make
For sure.
as we, navigate this increasingly digital world.
Absolutely. And that tension is at the heart of the second scenario,
Okay.
which is called a digital feudal state.
Right.
Here, Zuckerberg proposes something called a truth ledger,
A truth ledger.
which is essentially a public social credit score
Like based on your activity?
based on your online activity. Exactly.
Wow.
He argues that it would combat disinformation
Okay.
and promote harmony, but Ulbricht immediately pushes back, calling it a prison.
Oh, wow. So he's not a fan.
Not at all. His reaction is so visceral, you really get the sense that he sees this as a slippery slope
Towards.
totalitarianism, a
Yeah.
world where every action is scrutinized and judged.
That's kind of scary.
It is. And while Zuckerberg's vision might seem appealing on the surface,
Yeah, like who doesn't want more truth and harmony?
right, but the document forces us to consider the potential for abuse.
Like what could go wrong?
Right. Who gets to decide what constitutes truth?
That's a big question.
What happens to those who dissent or express unpopular opinion?
Yeah, they're probably not going to have a very good score.
Exactly. And could such a system be used to silence critics or manipulate public opinion?
It's chilling to think about.
Yeah, it's heavy.
We've already seen glimpses of this with social media censorship and the spread of misinformation.
Yeah.
Imagine if those trends were amplified
Yeah.
and codified into a system that dictates your social standing.
It's a scary thought, and the document cleverly draws parallels to China's social credit system,
Oh, wow.
which, while often misrepresented, does raise valid concerns about privacy and freedom of expression.
For sure.
By invoking this real world example, the document pushes us to grapple with
Right.
the potential consequences of such a system.
It's definitely a thought-provoking comparison.
For sure.
And while the document doesn't endorse any particular political system,
Right.
it does force us to confront the fact
Yes.
that these seemingly futuristic scenarios
Yeah.
might be closer than we think.
That's a good point.
It's like
Yeah.
it's not as far off as we might imagine.
Absolutely.
Um,
And while that second scenario, paints a rather dystopian picture,
yeah, it's a little bit bleak.
Ulbricht offers a potential counter narrative
Okay,
in scenario 3, a rebellion from the shadows.
a rebellion from the shadows.
He envisions hidden networks where people can escape surveillance
Okay,
and reclaim control over their digital lives.
so almost like a digital underground movement.
Yeah, kind of pushing back against the increasing, encroachment of technology into our lives.
It's an interesting concept. I'm curious,
Yeah.
how plausible is this scenario in the real world?
Hmm.
Are we seeing any signs of this digital rebellion already?
It's more plausible than you might think. Look at the rise of privacy focused tools
Okay.
like VPNs, encrypted messaging apps, decentralized social networks.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
These are all tools that allow individuals to operate outside the traditional structures of the internet.
So they're kind of like going off the grid digitally.
In a way, yes, and they're gaining popularity,
Makes sense.
especially among those who are concerned about surveillance and data privacy.
So it's less about like a full-blown rebellion
Right.
and more about individuals seeking alternative ways to protect their data and privacy.
Exactly. It's a gradual shift in how people use and interact with technology. And the document suggests this could lead to a kind of digital Cold War.
Oh, wow. Like a digital arms race almost.
Yeah, with governments and corporations on one side trying to maintain control and individuals and groups on the other seeking to reclaim their autonomy.
It's a fascinating dynamic.
Yeah.
So if those first three scenarios represent different approaches to control and freedom, what happens in scenario 4?
In scenario 4, harmony through chaos, Musk proposes a radical solution.
Okay.
Parallel city-states, each experimenting with a different model of tech governance.
City-states. That's interesting.
One city might be run by AI, another by blockchain,
Wow.
another by a social network.
So it's almost like a giant social experiment.
It is on a global scale.
That's quite a departure from the previous scenarios.
It is a pretty big shift.
It seems like he's suggesting that competition rather than control might be the key to progress.
Precisely. Musk's idea embraces the inherent messiness of innovation.
Okay.
He's essentially saying, let's create a multitude of systems and see which ones thrive.
So like a survival of the fittest for tech governance models.
Yeah, it's a high risk, high reward approach.
For sure.
With the potential for both unprecedented progress and catastrophic failure.
Imagine a world where you could choose to live in a city based on its technological philosophy.
It's a fascinating thought.
It's almost like choosing your own adventure.
Right.
But with potentially life-altering consequences.
Exactly. And the document suggests that this scenario might not be as far-fetched as it seems.
Really?
We already see examples of this with innovation hubs like Silicon Valley, special economic zones with different regulations, even the growing trend of tech-focused communities.
So while it might sound radical, there are elements of this scenario that are already emerging in the real world.
Exactly. It's not as out there as it might initially appear.
It makes you wonder, what would it take for this to become a reality on a larger scale?
That's a question the document leaves open for us to ponder, but it's a compelling thought experiment, pushing us to consider the potential benefits and drawbacks of a decentralized approach to technological governance.
It's fascinating to see how each of these scenarios grapples with, the potential impact of technology on society.
Right.
But the document takes kind of an unexpected turn with scenario 5.
Oh, really?
It's called the wild card ending.
The wild card ending. Okay, what's that about?
Well, this is where the document kind of steps back from those specific technological predictions.
Okay.
And highlights a different kind of force that's shaping the future.
I'm intrigued. What is it?
Perception.
Perception. Okay.
Like public opinion and how we interpret events.
Oh, okay. So not just the tech itself, but how people see it.
Exactly.
I see.
The document brings in Trump. not as a political figure,
Okay.
but more as a symbol of showmanship
Uh-huh.
and the power of narrative.
Interesting.
He argues that it's not enough to just like develop new technologies.
Yeah.
You have to sell the vision to the public.
Oh, so it's like marketing the future.
Right. You have to shape the narrative to gain acceptance.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's a reminder that even in a world, that's dominated by technology,
Yeah,
human psychology still plays like a crucial role.
absolutely. I mean, we're still human after all.
Right.
The document argues that we're all susceptible to media manipulation,
Oh, for sure.
influencer culture,
Yeah.
the constant barrage of information.
Yeah. It's overwhelming sometimes.
It really is. It raises the question, are we too easily swayed by appearances?
Mm-hmm.
By, carefully crafted narratives?
Instead of like focusing on the underlying facts.
Exactly.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
Especially as we try to navigate this increasingly complex and interconnected world,
Right.
where disinformation can spread like wildfire.
And this scenario hits close to home.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, we're already seeing how algorithms shape our news feeds, how deepfakes.
Like, deepfakes are terrifying.
I know they blur the lines between reality and fiction.
Yeah, you don't know what to believe anymore.
Right. And how influencers can sway public opinion on a massive scale.
It's scary powerful.
It is. So it makes you realize that the future isn't just about technological advancements.
Right.
It's also about how we perceive those advancements,
Uh-huh.
how we choose to engage with them,
Yeah.
and how we allow them to shape our beliefs and behaviors.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the new world 2025 and beyond, what stands out to you as the most crucial takeaway?
For me, I think it's the realization that the future isn't predetermined.
Yeah.
It's not set in stone.
It's like we're all writing it together.
Exactly. It's a tapestry woven from countless threads, technological advancements, social trends, individual choices, and even our own perceptions.
Right. So we're not just passengers.
No, we have a role to play in shaping that future.
Whether we realize it or not.
Absolutely. I completely agree. The document doesn't offer like easy answers
No.
or predict a single definitive outcome.
Right. It's not a crystal ball.
It is not. Instead, it challenges us to engage in critical thinking, to question assumptions, and to consider the potential consequences of different paths we might take.
So, for you, the listener, we leave you with this. Which scenario resonates most with you?
Yeah, think about
What role do you see yourself playing in this rapidly evolving landscape?
What kind of future do you want to create?
And how can you ensure that your voice, your choices, and your actions contribute to a future that aligns with your values?
That's the key question, isn't it?
It really is. Remember, the future is not something that just happens to us.
We have agency.
It's something we actively create through our decisions, our actions, and our engagement with the world around us.
That's a powerful thought.
It is, and a fitting end to our exploration of the new world 2025 and beyond. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.